Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, lest we forget. Okay, so let's start with posture and motivation, the first of the three excellences, if you remember. It's always good to remember that. There's so much wisdom in the traditional way of presenting the Dharma and the teachings that they give as to how to listen and so forth. So, how to listen is like this. To make it concise, we should think of ourselves as sick people, as a patient. Oneself is a patient, yeah, suffering from the worst of diseases, which is the afflictive emotions, yeah, the delusions. Ordinary sickness wouldn't be too bad, actually. You know, if we had typhoid or dengue or COVID, that wouldn't be nice, but it wouldn't really be as significant or as harmful as the afflictive emotions which we are suffering from. So we're a sick person. I am a sick person. Let's make it personal. I'm a sick person. The dharma is the medicine. The dharma is the medicine, which is, and maybe not today, but another day I'll recite a few verses from this marvelous short sutra, the sutra remembering the three jewels, the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, and they're very concise and very apt description of the Dharma. But basically, we can say the Dharma is that which eliminates the sickness we have, transforms our dukh into sukh, the unsatisfactoriness, the so-called suffering, into happiness, into bliss. And again, these are very inappropriate, not inappropriate, they are inadequate terms, the English terms. So anyway, I'm a sick person. Dharma is the medicine. The person bestowing the teaching or sharing the teaching is like a doctor. And oneself as the patient should take this medicine, should make sure one takes this medicine and to cure the disease. And one can take the help of the Sangha, the fellow practitioners. So they are like the people who help in the hospital, the nurses, the orderlies, everyone who helps us actually take the medicine properly over a period of time so that we recover from the sickness. And this sickness has been, after all, disturbing us, torturing us, in fact, since beginningless time. So it's something to take very seriously, this sickness. However normal we may think we are not healthy by Buddha standards or by any, if we check our minds, which I'm sure we are doing, look at the kinds of thoughts and emotions that pass through, and the fears, the expectations, the hopes, the fantasies, the anger, the attachment, the envy, and so forth, then we can see that we are not very healthy, mentally speaking. So so this opportunity to share and reflect, discuss the Dharma is something very wonderful, very unusual, and we should rejoice. While a lot of the world is, glued or will be glued to their TV sets, watching 22 people kick a ball around on a pitch, which has its moments, of course, which has its entertainment value. Very few people in this world are actually relating to themselves in this way that we just mentioned and taking the appropriate steps. So this is something very, very good, very wonderful. We should be happy at that. So the upright posture, the dignity, and the sort of spaciousness and dignity, the stability that it brings about, front of the body open. Since we're trying to make a difference in this suffering world, we're not hiding in our personal caves. We are willing to make some contribution to the world, to the happiness of sentient beings, especially those of us who may have taken certain vows, Bodhisattva vows. So then we are committed to helping beings who are without a protector, who are confused, and so forth. If we don't help them, who will? Yeah. So like that, we must generate this kind of state of mind in this posture. So I think we're going to engage in this session together by listening, reflecting, meditating, and discussing Shantideva's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, chapter 6 on patience. And by doing this, may there be a great benefit. We're doing this in order to develop great patience, which will enable us to be of much greater value and benefit to other beings, as well as, of course, being an incredible protection for our own minds, which are at the moment so easily disturbed, so easily hurt, so easily upset. So patience, like really wonderful armor to protect us from non-virtue, as well as becoming downhearted when we face difficult circumstances and the anger from within and without. So in order to achieve this, we also need to have a stable mind, which can focus. So for that, we'll engage in the breath awareness for some time, being aware of the inflow and outflow of the breath, the sensation of it, to the extent where we can become just sort of oneness with the breath. This may not happen in this session, of course, but these practices from the very outset can help us let go of this very painful and burdensome sense of me and I that we seem to carry around with ourselves all the time, everywhere, and which is very it's very burdensome, it's a very troublesome, annoying, painful self-consciousness that we carry around. Self-consciousness in the unwholesome sense, too much focused on me, you know. So with the breath awareness, we just let go and be with the breath and relax with the out breath without wanting anything, without hoping for anything at all. We're not searching for any experience, and we're not attacking anything, we're not defending anything. Simply, spaciously, but with awareness, being with breath and with whatever else is arising in the domain of consciousness. Okay. So we can gradually get ready for some words. Right. So I was checking where Venerable had left off because I wasn't able to attend most of the session yesterday, just joined in at the end. And I was told that she had reached verse 20, 21 of the Patience chapter, and that I think Nitya had raised some questions on those verses. So I suppose that's done now, right? It's been answered. Those questions have been answered. And is there anything more you want to discuss on those two verses? Let me read those verses from the Bachelor translation. The victorious warriors are those who, having disregarded all suffering, vanquish the foes of hatred and so forth. Common warriors slay only corpses. Furthermore, suffering has good qualities. Through being disheartened with it, arrogance is dispelled. Compassion arises for those in cyclic existence. Negativity is shunned, and joy is found in virtue. Is there anything anybody would like to ask regarding or discuss further regarding those verses? Or any other verses just prior to them or before we go on? Verse 21 is a very important verse because our ordinary samsaric thinking is to completely be upset with suffering, isn't it? To not want it at all. If we're told it has some good qualities, we feel that is very unnatural way to think. It's very unreasonable. It goes against worldly logic. It just seems needless self-torture or whatever. It seems like we are being masochistic in some way, trying to look at the positive side of suffering. What do you think? The good qualities here seem very powerful when looked at from the Dhamma angle. I mean, through being disheartened with it, arrogance is dispelled. Of course, even prior to all these, there is something else, isn't there? If we look at the very first teaching of Lord Buddha, and here I found something today in the Tushita bookshop. Actually, I bought it. I had some spare money, so I spent it on a book of teachings from the Sakya lineage. And one of their famous Kempos, Kempo Ape Rinpoche, is talking about the perfection of patience. And he says, patience can be developed through correct examination, meaning through correct analysis of our situation. So in terms of correct or proper examination, he says this: from the relative point of view, okay, from the relative point of view, we see that the nature of fire is heat, the nature of water is fluidity, the nature of earth is solidity, nature of air is movement. Just as these elements naturally have different characteristics, the nature of this world of existence is suffering. Being part of this world of existence, whose nature is suffering, our nature is to experience suffering as well. We also see that it is the nature of other living beings to harm us due to their selfish desires. Since the nature of this world is suffering, and our nature is to experience suffering, and the nature of others is to harm us, then we just have to be patient with them. That's how it is, you know? Aisa hi hai. Yahi hai. Asliyata yahi hai. You know? We can't pretend it's some other way, you know? We're sick, we're sick. If the Buddha is saying that it is suffering, there is suffering, and we say that we appreciate the Buddha's teachings, maybe we even say we are Buddhists, then, you know, then we should not be surprised, should we? If there is so much dukkha, so much suffering. That's how it is, we know. So to be upset and angry at suffering, to be dismayed and fall into despair due to it is ridiculous. It's like being despairing or upset when we find that the nature of the earth is solidity, you know, and fire is heat, water is fluidity, and so forth. That's just how it is. That's how they are. This is how this world is. This is how samsara is. It's in the nature of suffering. So that's also another way to think about it, to not be upset by it. It's just the way of things. So to make a big hue and cry and fuss about the way things are is ridiculous in one way. It's like, you know, being upset that the sky is blue, you know, or that the nature of fire is heat. So anyway, here's some very good reasons given. We do become disheartened with it and softened by it, you could say, and so our arrogance can be dispelled. Of course. Some people through suffering become very bitter, very angry. They have a chip on their shoulder. They want to, you know, get back at others, at society, at the world, don't they? Remember the quotation I used to love? Well, I used to quote from it quite a bit, the Trungpa quotation of two people who were brought up in the same way. You know, students say, sharing the same room, the same problematic food, the same problems at college, this and that. One person is kind of okay with it, they accept it, they deal with it, but the other person can't let it go. The other person, you know, develops this tremendous resentment against others, against the world, for having given them that, you know, unhappy or, you know, inadequate experience at college or wherever. They're very upset with what they see as attack against themselves. So, and then they become even revolutionary. They want to blow things up, you know, they have so much anger. So, of course, if we aren't careful, we can also use suffering, as most people in the world do, right, to create more suffering for others and for ourselves. We have evidence of that everywhere, unfortunately. So anyway, if we are intelligent, from a Dharma perspective, we see it, and so therefore our feeling of superiority or arrogance can be dispelled. We see how everyone, including ourselves, have to go through birth, sickness, maybe old age, definitely death, like that. So, we are no greater, we are not superior to others in terms of suffering, just as we are the same with others as wanting happiness, like that. Compassion arises for those in cyclic existence. Yes. No suffering, then no compassion. Negativity is shunned. Joy is found in virtue. Okay. Why would we shun? Why would we give up negativity? Elaine?
Kabirji, because it will bring us more suffering.
Yes, exactly. Negative karma, negative actions would bring us more suffering, so then we don't want to create the cause for more pain. And we then are happy to engage in that which is going to produce happiness or joy. Joy is found in virtue. We're happy to create positive actions of body, speech, and mind because we know it's going to give, happy, positive results in the future for all concerned. Yeah. Anything else to be looked at? Those two verses, the previous ones. That's really very apt point Shantideva makes in verse 20, that however difficult it is, and it is, the true warriors are those who get rid of the real enemy, the hatred, the inner afflictive emotions. Because ordinary warriors, they're just killing people who are going to die anyway, and the disturbing emotions aren't going to just go away, you see. They're not going to just die. They have to be undermined. They have to be cut at the root. But people in battle whom we kill, they are potential corpses anyway. There's no big deal in killing them, quite apart from being negative action, negative karma. Common warriors slay only corpses. Anything else on those? Do you agree with Shantideva? Chapter 20, verse 21. Do you think that could be so? Have you had any experience of that? Have you had any compassion arise due to seeing the suffering of others or your own? Okay, I take. Okay, it must is Arunaji still awake? Could you check? Arunaji at the back, is she still awake? Having a little snooze? Okay. She's probably had a hard day. No problem. No problem. I'm not offended in the least. Okay. So now, verse 22. Verse 22. As I do not become angry with great sources of suffering, such as jaundice, then why be angry with animate creatures? They too are provoked by condition. So now we come to a whole section where he is showing us how we need to get rid of this sense that we are being personally targeted in some kind of conspiracy whenever we suffer. He's really introducing the wisdom aspect now of dependent arising. how everything that comes into being to some causes and conditions. Of course, you could say some people do get angry when they're sick with their sickness, but in general, that is rather foolish to be angry with jaundice. Yeah. So we are told, what the causes are, and we know there's a cure. We know how to get rid of it. The doctor tells us. So any kind of anger, uncertainty, annoyance can be dispelled in that way. Similarly, beings, whether human or animal or, otherworldly, spirits, creatures, why be angry with them? They're also, the product of causes and conditions, and the states of their minds and the actions they engage in, it's all, they all have causes. It's all due to myriad causes and conditions, many of which we have no idea about because we just don't have the wisdom to see that. Maya, you raised your hand, Maya ji.
Ji, just to sort of bring in something that I heard just this morning. I was listening to Geshe Damdul ji's, he did a Bodhichitta retreat recently. So he was explaining this concept of causation. And he's saying that there are karmic causes and then there are non-karmic causes. So if, when there is intention involved, that's a karmic cause. And if there is a mechanical, cause and effect, as with objects, where there's no intentionality, then that's a non-karmic cause. That was
example of a non-karmic cause. Could you give an example of a
I think something like a virus attacking you, he would possibly see as a non-karmic, in that sense, or something, where there's
from
no
the side of the virus, you mean?
from the side of the virus, yeah. If I heard him correctly, that was the distinction. Naveen was there; he will correct me if I misinterpreted. So I was just wondering if our anger against others or impatience is greater when we know that it's intended harm, rather than when the causes are, what we say, okay, there's an earthquake or there's, natural calamity, where there is no intention to harm, there's no personal element there. Whereas we can have perhaps more justifiable anger. I mean, anger is never justified, but, it's more understandable, shall we say. If there is a targeted, whether it's hate crimes or by systemic or systematic, oppression. So I was wondering if one wants to make that distinction and maybe perhaps have better understanding of why people get angry or become revolutionary. People don't become revolutionary vis-a-vis earthquakes or, natural calamities. Revolutions are, good revolution, shall we say, well-intentioned revolutions. There are people who engaged in those, are intended to set right some deliberate harm, which is being caused by a group of people or a set of people, a class or a community against another, like Hitler, for instance, against the Jews. Or so, is there a space for righteous anger as a of course, violence is not conducive, is not going to solve the problem, but one can at least understand, the logic of that kind of, the discourse of justice really also somewhere. So I'm just trying to think through this distinction that he made this morning, which I just heard this morning, between two kinds of causation. So could certain kinds of causation, which can be rectified in some way, because if it's a social system, whether it's domestic violence or it's whatever, that you can, dissatisfaction with it can propel action, collective action. And that dissatisfaction can spill over into anger. So I'm wondering if there is a space for anger targeted in a good way, as it were, without destroying yourself and getting violent. Just a thought.
Thank you.
I hope I made sense.
Yes, yes, you.
Just to add a little nuance to this,
Of course, I understand what you're saying, Shantideva, and I think the argument here is that doesn't matter whether it's intention or not. Of course, one understands that. Well, I mean, take an example. When I stub my toe against a door or something, I can get very annoyed, very angry. Of course, I don't try and beat up the door or the stone because I know it's a losing battle. But one can get very angry with inanimate objects as well, and also then with oneself for being clumsy with that. But usually we get upset with people who can be very intentionally, obviously, and very deliberately wanting to annoy us or harm us or kill us or whatever. But there again, you see, Shantideva would say that doesn't matter at all. That just makes it even more important to realize that that person is very, very sick. If they're intentionally trying to harm you, especially if it's like repeatedly or very nasty actions that they're engaging against one, when one sees therefore that person is totally as it were in the clutches of the negative emotion at that point. So precisely because they intend to do it shows the extent of their ignorance, the extent of their being under the power of the negative emotion. If they were just doing it, in a daze or in a kind of a sleepwalk or while they were drunk, then it wouldn't have, that's totally understandable. Then there is the quality of intention is not there. But when intention really is there, and someone is deliberately out to get you, to harm you, to malign you, to destroy you, your career or whatever, that's the person Shantideva is saying, is implying that's someone who is totally the slave of causes and conditions. Just because they are intending, that makes it even more of a case. That strengthens the case he's making. See, he's saying, how much people are so, affected, right, conditioned by causes and conditions, that they are even willing to, engage in this kind of action of speech, body, speech, and mind, intentionally killing, intentionally torturing, intentionally, murdering animals at on a vast, unbelievable scale every day. All of this stuff, it's all due to causes and conditions. And when we see how people are so caught up in that, not seeing the negative effects of it, how much it is going to be the cause of suffering, then one feels even more compassion for such people if one looks at it from the Dharma perspective. They're totally under the slaves of the disturbing emotions, you see. It's not like they're just casually doing this or that, which is negative. They want to harm, they want to hurt you with their snide or sarcastic comment or their harsh speech, or, they may know exactly how to harm us with knowing our weak point. know exactly how to make us feel very, very upset with a word or a phrase in front of other people, let's say. So that person, you could say they're doing it in full consciousness, full awareness in one sense, but totally under the control of a negative mind, negative causes, conditions. So they are, so the righteous anger is not valid. What we could say is that a righteous energy or a kind of assertive, apparently aggressive action may be very beneficial, but anger, meaning that sense of wishing to harm or intense dislike, wishing to harm, not wanting the other to have happiness, wishing them to suffer, wishing them harm, that is not acceptable in any circumstance, even with Hitler. One would want to stop Hitler doing what he's doing, if necessary by shooting him, if one had the ability to, but that would be, from the perspective, would be okay if one really understood these reasonings, wanted to protect him from, further negative karma and further suffering for himself. And so therefore, engaging in a very strong action to stop him, whatever. I mean, you see what I'm getting at?
Venerable Jamyang spoke of it also. Somebody raised this issue about, the whole question of not pretend anger, shall we say, even,
right.
Strategically put on anger, where you don't let it get to you, but you actually feel the need to resist something. That, one must not give up on resisting and stopping a harmful act. So that is, I think, and sometimes the first stage of it could be a sense of the injustice of something, which can manifest as anger, not anger as a desire to harm, but just being deeply dissatisfied. That's what I meant. Not anger translating into malice, but just anger as in the wrongness of something.
Then it's not
that can be productive. That can be quite productive. So
definitely we need probably more of that courageous anger of that sort. I would say wrathful activity or strong activity of that sort. Rather
because
than
why I'm saying this is because there is a tendency to also then kind of just step back and say, oh, everybody deserves, our compassion and everything happens and let it be. That let it be can also turn into lack of response where a response is required.
If we let it be, we'll.
So I think that's the crucial distinction I was trying to make between.
Of course. That absolutely.
Because one can be swimming in this kind of spiritual, ether, and just be above it all, floating, and say, oh, it's all the same. That's socially not very viable or responsible, I feel. So that's
floating all. Like COP27 and all the previous, just letting things happen, really. Not,
because you take such a cosmic view of things that this world will destroy itself. There are more worlds. So that's
that's not. I don't think Shantideva is saying that. No way. At least Dalai Lama ji isn't saying that. So I guess. What else? Anything else on those couple of verses? Anything related? Verse 22. Okay, 23 makes it clearer. Although they're not wished for, these sicknesses arise, such as jaundice. Likewise, although they are not wished for, these disturbing conceptions forcibly arise. Forcibly arise, yes, forcibly arise. They arise because there are causes and conditions. the causes and conditions come together, they will arise, nothing can stop it. Not even the Buddhas can stop it, We've created the cause for certain kind of happiness or certain kind of suffering, then that will happen. Unless we, put in, interfering factors, then it can be mitigated. Suffering can be mitigated. Happiness can be reduced if we regret positive actions. Then the happy results can be watered down. So anyway, yeah. Disturbing conceptions forcibly arise. So let's carry on, because he carries on the argument, the next few verses. Without thinking, I shall be angry. People become angry with no resistance. And without thinking, I shall produce myself. Likewise, anger itself is produced. Yeah. It's like you create sufficient causes. You put the egg in the boiling water for 3.5 minutes or more, then you have a boiled egg, It's just going to happen. There is no, going against that. I shall be angry. People become angry with no resistance. I think actually he's saying something slightly different here. It's often the causes and conditions aren't very visible. People become angry with no resistance. Sometimes they're visible, sometimes they're not visible. Say you're talking to somebody and suddenly you get angry because of what that person is saying. There's no resistance. The force of one's habit is just so strong that that person's words or that person have triggered something, and one is defenseless, as it were. One has no opposing factor within. We just become angry. There's so much, what shall we say, habitual energy there to get angry. And so we get angry. There's no resistance. And the anger from its side is not So it's almost as though nothing, it's what meets the eye is not the whole story. Someone gets angry with us or makes us angry, we take it very personally, so we don't see the whole picture at all. We don't see the whole nexus of causes and conditions, the circumstances which, have made that person behave in that way, which is then making us angry. And we are angry for a whole bunch of causes and conditions from our side, and the habitual patterns that we've been engaging in since beginning this time. All mistakes that occur, verse 25, all the various kinds of wrongdoing arise through the force of conditions. They don't govern themselves. We mustn't misunderstand this to think that we are just puppets and that we have no power. But of course, the way we behave up to now, if we don't develop, the kind of dharmic awareness, then it is actually as though we are powerless. We are like puppets at the moment, is what he seems to be saying. We are just the playthings of our karmic energies, Instincts come up, habitual patterns, what do we call it? Sanskar. The the imprints are triggered, and we just behave in a certain way. They don't govern themselves. They're governed by other factors. So does that mean we are perpetually the slave of other factors? No. Well, it means that if we want to have a different kind of experience in our life, we have to create different conditions. Different causes and conditions have to be produced, starting with our minds, right? And then we will have different experiences, which are themselves, of course, are conditioned, but they are conditioned, kind of positive conditioning to give at least, some kind of happy results. So things don't govern themselves. This is very, very, very important what he's saying in all these verses now. These conditions that assemble together have no intention to produce anything. Neither does their product have the intention to be produced. Okay. Are you getting what what Shantideva is trying to say? He's trying to get us out of the habit of, when we get angry and so forth, blaming the other, getting angry at the other. He's saying everything, if we understood the causes and conditions, that is going to minimize or even eradicate our anger. When we really understand the causes and conditions, then we see that it is not some kind of totally personal attack on me, because we just take it as something very personal, don't we? Everything becomes so personal, to do with me. You're upsetting me. Why are you saying that to me? You hurt me. You're annoying me. You're, debasing me. You're maligning me. It all becomes so personalized. And Shantideva seems to be saying, look, people behave the way they do, well, for that reason we mentioned before also, because they're sick. They're sick in their heads because of many causes and conditions. That's why they behave the way they do. There's, be unreasonable for them to behave any other way. So it takes this personal sting out of it. We see how things are dependent arisings. They are not, they don't arise from their own side. They're not inherently existent. So there's no inherently nasty or bad or troublesome person, which is how we often relate to people. Oh, they are like that, like that only. No, they are temporarily like that due to causes and conditions, which are changing all the time. And which also shows the way out, doesn't it? We change the causes and conditions, start changing them now, then we get different results in the future. Nothing governs itself. There's no such thing as some inherently existing environmental problem. It has causes and conditions. It's created by millions and billions of causes and conditions. And that then gives understanding rather than an emotional response to what happens based on how do I feel about it? Is it making me feel unhappy or happy? That becomes the yardstick in the samsaric world. Whereas where we start going towards the wisdom side, it seems we have to check, what's causing this? Why is this happening? Why am I behaving like this? Why is that person behaving like that? We may not know the intimate causes and conditions, obviously, but we can have a good general idea by studying karma and dependent arising and what the afflictive emotions are, what their causes are. We can then begin to understand. And as the French say, understanding brings a sense of forgiveness meaning that we can then handle things. We don't just lash out. that sense of revenge. You harm me, you annoyed me. So then the sense of wanting to get back at people or society or a person, that will go away. So the next few verses we need to read through a bit, and then they come to a kind of climax in verse 31, where it really explains how we should look at these things from the more ultimate perspective, from the perspective of wisdom, ultimate wisdom. All this up to now is kind of relative wisdom, relative truth. Very, very, very important, very powerful. But the deepest way to get rid of the disturbing modes and the hindrances to patience are from the wisdom side, always, seeing things as illusions, of seeing the emptiness of phenomena. So this is all aiming towards that, actually. That which is asserted as primal substance and that which is imputed as a self, since they are unproduced, they do not arise after having purposefully thought, I shall arise in order to cause harm. If they are unproduced, non-existent, then whatever wish they have to produce harm will also not exist. Since this self would permanently apprehend its object, it follows that it would never cease to do so. Yeah, here we're in the realm of philosophy again. The primal substance is something that is asserted, isn't it, by the Samkhya school of philosophy. And I'm reading from the notes here, note 21. The primal substance is the permanent underlying material cause and the nature of all objective phenomena, according to this non-Buddhist Sankhya school. Permanent underlying material cause. And that which is imputed as a self, so this again, the non-Buddhist concept of unchanging, partless, autonomous self or soul, which of course Buddhists don't accept. So this is what we tend to believe in, some kind of underlying, independently existing self, right? Unchanging self or soul, not produced by anything. So I'm not quite sure exactly why Shantideva put that verse there. I would need to read a commentary on that, which I have not done so before this lesson. So maybe we can discuss this. Maybe Ajirji, somebody can comment on this, or Elaine, since you studied these under with Geshe-la. But what is useful is verse 31 itself is actually, let's look at that first, then we can go backward. He says, hence, everything is governed by other factors, other factors than itself, which in turn are governed by others. And in this way, nothing governs itself. Having understood this, I should not become angry with phenomena, which are like apparitions, like illusions. Okay, so, the hand is governed, well, if you take a material object like the hand is governed by, you could say, all of its parts and the causes of it, and the blood and the food that's been eaten, that which can keep this hand going, keep it a hand, otherwise it would wither and die by now, right? And the food is dependent on other factors, like soil and seeds and farmers, etc., etc. And all of these things we can keep on going and going and going until we have to take, into consideration the sun and the moon and the stars and the whole thing, right? So everything is governed by other factors, which in turn are governed by other factors, and you could keep on going, And in this way, nothing governs itself. And that's also, relevant with, with mental factors. So something happens to me, say I have to go to a really important meeting, and the plane is cancelled, or the train is cancelled, or very delayed. So then, of course, I get angry. But then, if I were to understand what has caused that, you see, even if it's caused by total kind of carelessness or laziness on the part of, the airline or the train company, even if that is the case, then again, that is caused by various factors, isn't it? That is caused by, habitual patterns, by, habit of laziness, habit of carelessness. Why are people ever careless? One could go into that. So many causes and conditions, because basically one may be fed up with, life, or, have resentment. So one really doesn't take anything very seriously. One doesn't bother to do anything carefully. There could be many reasons. Whenever one does anything, one is not appreciated enough. So one says, what the heck? Couldn't be bothered. Or one is angry at management, or angry at something, or angry at a memory, because of a memory we have of, so myriad causes and conditions could be behind the train or plane being late, delayed or cancelled. And of course, that doesn't stop me missing my meeting. I still miss the meeting, but this irrational, this anger that arises with no resistance, that can be softened, that can be avoided even by understanding the chain reactions, the chain of cause and effect, producing then a particular result, which of course is also affecting other people, right? Other people, it's not as though oneself's the only one who would be affected by a delayed or cancelled train, right? But we take everything so personally. It's so much, everything is to do with me. So then everything gets blown up. So I should not become angry with phenomena which are like apparitions. And then a question arises, then he poses a question that an opponent may ask, a philosophical opponent. If everything is unreal, like an apparition, then who is there to restrain? What anger? And the reply is, surely in this case, restraint would be, So, and they continue, that questioner continues. So surely in this case, restraint would be inappropriate. Yeah, there's no need for restraint. If everything is unreal, like an apparition, who is there to restrain what anger? So restraint would be inappropriate, the philosophical opponent is saying. And then Shantideva replies, it would not be inappropriate because conventionally I must maintain that in dependence upon restraining anger, the stream of suffering is severed, is cut. There's this thing which I always remember, that the high school of Buddhist philosophy, according to the Nalanda tradition, the Prasangika Madhyamakas, they don't argue with conventional truth, in the sense they don't deny conventional truth. They don't have an argument with conventional reality. Conventional reality is there. we have to act on that basis that we are dealing with conventional reality. If I say, oh, my body is like an apparition, so therefore I don't need to eat or drink anything, and therefore I don't need to sleep tonight because this body, after all, is just an apparition. How would it need sleep? How would it need food or drink? So this is going to a ridiculous length, not understanding what is being said. Yeah. Conventionally, I must maintain that independence, here we can rephrase, independence upon water and food and having rest, yeah, the body is nurtured, the stream of suffering is cut. If I don't eat or drink, someone like me, if I don't eat or drink or sleep, I will suffer, yeah. So, but here, in this case, we have to see that in this illusory-like world, I have to engage in the illusory-like action of restraining illusory-like anger to avoid future illusory-like suffering. Illusory-like because it is not inherently existing or solid from its own side. It's dependent on causes and conditions. We see things as very solid, heavy, somehow real, but it's like an illusion. It's like a dream. So when one sees an enemy or friend committing an improper action, by thinking that such things arise from conditions, I shall remain in a happy frame of mind. Well, this is interesting, isn't it? If one sees an enemy committing an improper action, like, say they're a person with influence, and their improper action can have a very, very powerful negative effect, like, polluting a river. If they're a big industrialist or if they're an arms, manufacturer, they produce an even more horrible kind of weapon that creates, even more devastation or horrible injuries. So if I see that, by thinking that such things arise from conditions, I shall remain in a happy frame of mind. Well, one has to understand what is being said. What he's saying is, when you realize that things arise from conditions, then you don't freak out. You understand. You can understand, and therefore you don't lose control. But he would never, I don't think Shantideva would ever say that we don't try and restrain people who are engaging in very, very negative action. Of course not. That's one of the Bodhisattva vows, actually, is you break a vow, actually. If you don't engage in powerful, strong action to stop, someone engaging in a powerful mistake, which you can do something about, and you don't do it, that's breaking a vow, breaking one of the Bodhisattva vows. One has to be, so happy frame of mind simply means you understand it. It's not some kind of dreadful, horrible thing that's being done to you unfairly. You understand it. But if you see, people arguing uselessly or just being stupid or, again and again making the same mistakes in their relationships or their just dealings with people, then you don't get totally upset and depressed about humanity and, getting morbid and saying, I've lost faith in human beings. You don't go to that extreme. You understand and you maintain a, let's say, a balanced state of mind. It doesn't have to be happy, but balanced. And you don't get upset, I think is what he's saying. Who would have a happy frame of mind if you saw a friend engaging in a very negative action? You wouldn't be happy. So we have to, I don't know, unfortunately, what the Tibetan was there, or the Sanskrit. It may not have been happy. Does anyone have the other translation in front of them? The Padmakara?
Yes, Kabirji,
Chapter
I
6,
have
but-
this one. I have this one.
What does it say? Verse 33.
33. Thus, when enemies or friends are seen to act improperly, remain serene and call to mind that everything arises from conditions.
Yeah, I prefer that translation. Serene. You know, it doesn't have to be
Serene.
happy. Serene.
Yeah.
You understand. You may be disappointed with your friend for engaging in a, you know, if your friend has done something really stupid or nasty, I mean, you're not going to be happy. But serene, you could still be serene in the sense you don't lose it. You don't get totally upset or start lashing out at your friend or something. So yeah, thank you. That's a better translation, I think. It makes sense, that one. If things were brought into being by choice, then since no one wishes to suffer, suffering would not occur to any embodied creature. Exactly. If we had choice, everything would be fine because no one wants to suffer. Everyone wants to be happy. If we had the choice, we would be happy. So why aren't we happy? Well, other causes and conditions, myriad causes and conditions. That's the point. It is governed by other forces. We are not our own masters right now. We are not the masters of our own mind. The mind is mastering us right now. The deluded mind, the afflictive emotion mind is determining how we behave right now. So that has to be changed. So let's have some discussion. It's almost 8 o'clock. If you wish. Being lazy, I'm happy to stop, but also happy to go on. I'll say serene about going on. I've been sleeping much more than usual the last few weeks, last few days anyway. Good sign, bad sign, I don't know. Huh.
Kabirji, earlier
Anybody?
we were talking about the self. I think that another way I thought of maybe if the self was permanent, like we make it out to be, we always look at something that is annoying us or someone that is annoying us as very solid and doing it as if their permanent self is there, not something like a magical illusion.
Yeah.
The point would be that then it would be useless to be really angry with them because they're not going to change.
Sorry, say that again, that last bit. It would be useless
To be
to do.
angry with them because if we thought of them as permanent, then they wouldn't change.
Right. Good point. Yes. If people are really that way, inherently existing from their own side, then they can't do anything about their anger. Is that what you're saying? They can't do
Yes,
anything.
and we couldn't do anything about their behavior. But the point being that they can change because they are impermanent and they aren't, permanent objective from their own side. So they will change. They are also subject to conditions, and that's why they're behaving like they are behaving. And hopefully, because of impermanence, the good thing will be that things can change. They're not going to, that situation is not going to remain forever and ever.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. Thank you. Yeah. That seems very reasonable way of interpreting that. Sometimes verses aren't that difficult, but one doesn't know exactly what they're getting at or where they're coming from. Because he kind of jumps from the relative to suddenly talking about primal substance, which I guess is great for the people who are studying philosophy deeply and the different schools. And it provides good material for the debating courtyard. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think here what he was trying to say was the self isn't permanent, so there's no use getting into such a bother about it,
Yeah. Yeah.
The things you're looking at are like magical illusions. They keep changing. There are many conditions that we don't even know is why it's happening. So we can
Right.
do what we can in our sphere, and we do what we can in our circumstances. But to hope that we can fix everything is, as you said right in the beginning, the Buddha said that's what samsara is like. It's suffering. So we can alleviate it in our fellow man and in ourselves to a certain degree. We can't really fix it all together. So not to get too, twisted up with all that.
Yeah. Yeah, verse 29 is, if the self were permanent, it would clearly be devoid of action. Yeah, you wouldn't be able to act if it's permanent. It's like unchanging. So even if it met with other conditions, how could its unchanging nature be affected? It seems to be that if we have a self, which is, if we are changeable, good work, no need to be angry, right? Because people can change. But the other also works, isn't it? If we are, if we were to accept that someone is unchangeable, is just like that and is not going to change, then again, what's the point of being angry? They are like that. Seems to work both ways. Whether you're permanent or impermanent, being angry is pointless, because in one situation it can change, and in the other situation it can't change. So why be angry with a rock for being hard? But if it's a kind of rock that can become soft through, then again, why be angry with it for being hard? It can be eroded, or whatever. You see what I'm saying? It seems that whichever way we look at it, anger is inappropriate. It's similar to that other argument that if something can be changed, why worry? If it can't be changed, why worry? It's that's just how it is. Yeah. Okay, someone had Tushita Delhi raised their hand.
That me, Kabirji, I was just thinking about what Elaine said and wondering if, this cognitive reasoning that we can apply to a situation when anger arises, whether it actually can supersede the emotional response. Like, does it, if you constantly, and you're convinced, obviously, about the fact that, the self is illusory, just as,
Yes.
is illusory, then, okay, so that's a cognitive understanding. But when an emotion arises, can it actually come first?
Yeah, well, that's the whole point, I think, of these the wisdom teachings, is that when we understand our cognitive mistake, and at the intellectual level even begin to see how the self as we understand it is a hallucination, is like an apparition, then the emotional affect doesn't follow. It can't follow because it doesn't have a foundation. Emotional affects of the kind we have come about because there's something to promote or protect, which is me. I've been affected. I am moved by this wonderful music. I am upset by your unreasonable comments. It's this holding on. If we see there's nothing to hold on to, like we see the rainbow in the sky actually dissolving, or we understand so clearly that rainbow cannot be grasped, and that if I spend 10-15 minutes looking for my camera to photograph it, I realize that probably it won't be there when I come back, then I won't be upset, because I know that's what rainbows are. So then when we have that kind of feeling towards me, seeing it as was mentioned, as this flickering bundle of thoughts, perceptions, emotions, memories, fears, expectations, you name it, intentions, happening in rapid succession, then we realize there's really nothing there that can be held onto. There's no ground. So then there's no ground for unwholesome kind of emotion. But there is space then for the noble emotions like, love and compassion. But again, they are more spacious love and compassion. It's not my love, my compassion, which could then lead to all kinds of self-glorification, You see what's being said? One is just totally undermining this whole notion of personalized, sticky, centralized emotion, or we might say emotionality, because not all emotions are regarded as, negative by no means, or problematic. Does that make sense at all?
Kabirji, I was also going to say something about, sorry.
Nitya, does that make sense?
It makes like reasonable sense, but I mean, what strikes me as you speak is that maybe then, I'm equating it to my life experiences, and perhaps I haven't got there because, the sort of disturbing emotions come up, and perhaps that's just an indicator that there's work to be done at that level.
Yes. I'm sure there's work to be done at all kinds of levels. That I agree. I think, just the more we engage in the practice, purify, and reflect on these things, then everything becomes clearer. But up to now, it seems that we're all habituated to a lot of suffering emotion. Emotions are pain, as Dzongsa Rinpoche translates the second of the four seals. Emotions are pain, or contaminated phenomena are in the nature of suffering. So it's all the troublemaker is me, is the I, the self-cherishing attitude based on self-grasping ignorance. It's so clear. So if that centralizing element is softened, is diffused, then there is energy. Then there is no problematic emotion. There is just energy, is what is being said. And this energy can be then used for the path, for something very beneficial. But right now, it's kind of it's trapped. It's captive kind of energy, and in the wrong way. It's connected with fear and expectation, isn't it? Almost all of our emotions are connected with that. Fear, expectation, wanting, not wanting. That's what they're connected with, which is suffering. It's constricting the spaciousness of what we really are. More work is required on this, obviously. It just, all these good questions just show up the poverty of an approach that lacks a lot of study, reflection, and meditation. Without those three going on, in quite some depth, it seems like awakening doesn't happen. Renunciation doesn't happen. Nothing deep really happens without going deeper into things, starting with study.
Kabirji, just to add on, sorry, sir. No, I mean, just recounting our discussion in the last 2 weeks, that cognitive aspects become so central to recognize that our afflictive emotions are really a response to a feeling of hurt, which we feel. And then when we cognitively understand that the anger or jealousy or lust or any of such afflictive emotions are in fact, if you can cognitively process it as a response to the feeling of hurt, lack, which comes first, I think the emotions can sort of be one of the discussions which Venerable Jamyang I remember having was to let that the emotion which we call as emotion, let it ripen fully, and at the same time cognitively understand that it is a response to a particular feeling which is coming through us. And in that sense, then cognitive move is trained for us. We can train our mind cognitively to respond to these emotions in a more logical fashion.
That seems a very intelligent approach. So that's been gone into.
Oh yes,
with Venerable Jamyang, is it? Quite a bit. Good.
I think
Right.
Elaine?
Yeah,
Elaine, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I was actually going to say something about the remark about the self being illusory. Actually, it isn't. It's only like an illusion. It's very much there, the self. It's just a continuum. It keeps changing all the time. It's just that we see it as a permanent self, but actually it's there. It's very much there. It's just like a stream. It keeps changing every minute.
Yeah.
That's what we need to just
there is
kind
a
of,
self. There is a self.
there is.
Not an inherently existing one.
Yes.
Not the one you think
but
exists.
we don't need to erase it altogether or anything like that. We just need to kind of keep it as, it will change. It's also subject to conditions and we can do stuff with it. So it's okay. Not so bad.
Yes. Sorry, go on. Yeah.
And yes, and you were saying, I think the practice of sitting and looking like Venerable Jamyang said at the anger, then later on I suppose we will get the the hang of it, of holding on to it before giving into it, but that takes practice, yes, for all of us. I think for me especially.
I think just one thing, it's almost as though when we give something a name, when we use a word, it almost automatically makes that feel something solid. So if we say wall, table, self, giving a name to something somehow solidifies it automatically. Do you think? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Even just saying A, the letter A, it seems like there's a solid, real A, A, B, C, book, table, chair, world, person, self, anything, anger. It seems like there's something really there. Whereas it's not like that. The word is not the reality of it. And certainly there is nothing that is, solidly there from its own side. That's the big trap.
Chogyam Trungpa has a wonderful quote. He said it so nicely. He says, this ego is a brilliant work of art, product of intellect, which says, let's give all this a name. Let's call it I. That's what he says.
Yeah. It seems to be like that. Yeah. Ajit ji, did you want to say something?
No, I just wanted to add to what you have already said. This is the question which was raised regarding the cognitive side and the affective, which is the emotional side. So it's very clearly told in the teaching that the affective side will follow from the cognition. This is really saying that we make a lot of error in the cognition. That's why our affective side also becomes wrong. And the wrong side is that whatever is impermanent, cognitively we perceive as permanent.
Yeah.
What is in the nature of misery, we perceive as happiness. And what is in the nature of selfless, we perceive as selfhood. So I think if we bring a shift in the cognitive there, then I think the affective side with the emotional side also gets changed. They also get shifted. So there's an acceptance to that, which essentially means there is no impatience. There is acceptance of that. Yeah.
Yeah, that
Ajayji,
makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
to add on to what you're saying, it also appears that when we try to engage with our cognitive side, it appears that we need to do it in a very effective way, very compassionate way. That even when we try to rectify our cognitive,
When I said effective means it is spelling with the AFFECTIV, which is the emotional side. I think that is how I find generally the word is used. The cognitive side and the affective side. You can call it the emotional side also. Obviously, I think when we are trying to understand the emotional side or the cognitive side, there has to be a lot of patience, a lot of understanding of that. I think that part is definitely accepted, that there has to be a lot of compassion in understanding. In fact, I think now it has really come out very clearly, and I can see myself also. I don't think I have been compassionate to my own body, to my own feelings. Yeah, I think that part I agree. We have to be very compassionate in understanding that. Which essentially means trying to understand the wisdom part.
Yeah. One just simple example came to mind, which seemed to be helpful for me while I was listening to you, is that say there's a mirage or a scarecrow in the distance. Cognitively, we see water which is not there, and we feel thirsty and excited. But then when we see our mistake, when we get closer through cognition, then the emotion goes away, right? A scarecrow, from a distance, we may think there's our best friend or our worst enemy there. And so a particular affect happens, a particular emotion. We get closer and we see what it is, and then we start laughing, So yeah, it seems like the cognition does come first, doesn't it? The understanding through cognition. And then there's the emotional, the affective response. But I'm not sure if that's always the case, but it seems that it would need to be the case.
That's right. The example of like a mirage, the example of the scarecrow. I remember very clearly that when we were a small child, that when it is dark, we were told that don't go near that bush because that's like a ghost. And we really used to feel that's really ghost. It feel very scary. Though, of course, it's only, again, created by the cause and the condition at night. During daytime, we were not really scared of that.
Yeah.
Because the bush was seen as a bush. Bush was not seen as a ghost in the dim light or at the twilight.
I would actually disagree with this, because I think much before our cognitive mind develops, what we feel at the very beginning are feelings, right? We only know if something feels safe or unsafe, if feelings are and I think that's also, this is what I understood from what the Venerable Jamyang said, is that attachment and aversion happens on the basis of feelings. it's our emotional response that happens first. And even in our development trajectory as human beings, we have feelings before our brain actually develops its cognitive powers. What do you think?
Yeah, that is what you are saying is correct. I think we really have to understand what Venerable Jamyang was trying to put forth. You know, when there's a feeling, immediately the mind puts the level. We don't allow that feeling to feel as a feeling. If we allow that feeling to be felt as a feeling, then the cognitive side would not really come and immediately put it, it's a dangerous, it's a thing, it is painful. I hope you are getting what I'm trying to deal.
Sorry, your voice was cracking. No, we can't hear you. I'm just wondering what cognition means. Cognition doesn't have to be eye, ear, nose, tongue, touch, does it? We can cognize through the feelings, can't we? Cognize means to know, right?
But there has to be contact before that.
This is in the context of the nature of obscurations, afflictive obscurations and cognitive obscurations. That's the context in which we are discussing this. That's why. So,
but what comes first? Does something come first?
In the teachings, it's clear that cognitive obscurations are the ones we need to be able to handle first. And hence, cognition is the central part. That's the way we've been taught.
Yeah, I mean, the very basis of samsara seems to be posited as a cognitive mistake. Yeah, self-grasping ignorance. We are grasping at the self in a way that is wrong. We are misperceiving. We are miscognizing something. So feeling seems to be something that comes. What are the 5 omnipresent mental factors? Isn't feeling one of them?
Yes.
Yes.
So they're omnipresent mental factors. So what is that? Is that complicated?
But before the feeling, contact comes first. There has to be some contact with something before a feeling comes. According to what Nitya was talking about, feeling suddenly coming, you can't get a feeling without a contact with something, no?
I know what the teachings say, yeah, but
no, what
Nitya
about, was talking about. Yeah,
but if they're omnipresent, it means they're there all the time.
All together. Yes.
Is that what it means? Omnipresent mental factor, that they're all the time in any cognitive act?
But
they're all there at the same time. Maybe they're simultaneous. I don't know. We'd have to ask someone
Almost
like
simultaneous. Geshe-la says almost simultaneous. I mean, actually they follow one another, but it's so quick that it seems simultaneous.
No,
he said they follow one another.
Yes, because you have to have contact.
No.
Attention.
No, that is he said just to explain, but
yes.
Otherwise he said that it is simultaneous. All these factors,
they're always there.
Interesting. Food for thought. Hope it doesn't create sleeplessness.
No.
Extraholics tonight. Yeah.
Otherwise, we'd never sleep with Geshe-la's lecture. There's so much to think about.
so much. Just pick up I'm about to buy a book on Abhidhamma when I come back to Delhi, which I've seen advertised. I sent something on it, a link to a duty. And that I hope is going to explain things. This scholar seems to be excellent and recommended. And the last copy I'm going to buy, so don't any of you try and go and buy it before me, because I'll be there before you. It's been reserved. But hopefully, if I begin to understand that book, I'll be able to be more lucid and explain things a bit better. But anyway, it's good. It's good we don't come to any fixed certainties about things, because who are we to be certain, We don't have the amount of the knowledge probably and the reflection and the meditation put in yet necessarily, to be able to be certain about anything. And for sure, if there's a certainty, we'll need to shrug it off at some point with some other level of awareness that comes up. So anyway, yeah, now look, tomorrow we need to arrange something. And I'm glad we have Ajirji and Naveenji here, because Naveenji is kindly house sitting for me in Delhi. I was thinking tomorrow evening, if I'm traveling by bus, I won't be able to take this session. So either we have someone else take this session, or else I don't come back to Delhi until Thursday.
Ajirji, take a session.
If you can come to the center, if you are in Delhi,
Ajirji.
in Delhi and can come to the center, please, then we could organize.
The internet connection is good. Are you in
I'm not-
Delhi yet?
I am not in Delhi, I'm in Bir.
You are in
Never mind, you can still take a
So,
session on Zoom.
No, Alan, I think
Connection.
my internet is really very unstable. Today also I found off and on. So I
Yeah.
really would not like to.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I can come back to Delhi on Thursday morning, you see, leave here Wednesday evening, do the session tomorrow. It doesn't matter, Naveenji, if the house is empty one night. That's no big deal. Because you go on Wednesday. It's very kind of you. You've stayed so long. So we'll do like that. I'll stay an extra night at here at Tushita, which is very nice, which is lovely to be here after 4 or 5 years. I haven't been here. So I can also go down to the temple and do a few things. I can also, Ajirji, I can get you that book you wanted. It's in the bookshop here. Do you want me to buy you a copy? The Gelok Kagyu Mahamudra? Anyway, let me know. Did you hear that?
You're on mute.
You're muted, Ajirji. You are muted, Ajirji. Ask to unmute. You're muted, Ajirji. Yeah, now it's okay.
Yeah.
But actually, you'd get a better discount in Delhi, so we can wait till Delhi. वो 25% discount.
Surely.
Yeah. Yeah.
ठीक है.
Yeah, Delhi में हो जाएगा. Okay, so I think we can stop.
Which is this book, Kabirji, please? Which is
Gelok
this book?
Kagyu Mahamudra, Alexander Berzin, and Dalai Lama. Yeah, it's been out a long time, since the 20th century. Yeah, been out a while, but I can show you something. Oh, just a moment. Yeah. It has a mind from Alexander Berlin. It's really very, very good. Mind. Yeah. My mobile right now. It's called the Kagyu Mahamudra. Okay. Alexander Berzin is all. So that's very good.
Can't hear you, Kabirji. You're muted now.
Okay. Navinji, I'll send you a message after the session. Don't want to take up session time with domestic matters. Okay, so look, everybody, thank you very much. We will have a session tomorrow. I'll stay here at Tushita. So 2 birds with 1 stone. We can do the session and I enjoy another day in the hills. And why not my little holiday? So let's dedicate any positive energy simply by, attempting to look at some verses from this great Acharya Shantideva, great Bodhisattva. His wonderful text that itself is something meaningful and imbued with virtue. So let's dedicate strongly that our efforts together bear fruit. In other words, help us to develop deep study, reflection, meditation. That's one thing. Then also, obviously, to develop unbiased love and compassion, leading to Bodhichitta, so that we can then create powerful causes for full awakening. At which point we'll be of tremendous benefit for others, and we will have also fulfilled our own potential as a human being, the highest potential of a human being. And until that time, may our lives be most beneficial for others, most meaningful. Anything anyone has to do with us in any way, may it become very potent, very meaningful for that person in the most positive way. Even people who, hate us or harm us, may they be benefited long term by any interaction with us. And let's pray for peace in the world as much as possible. And people who are suffering, to be able to bear their suffering and to be free from their suffering. People who are sick or dying, dedicate for them. And for the long lives of all our spiritual masters, very important dedication, that one. And for ourselves never to be separated from authentic dharma and authentic teachers. So thank you, everyone. Very hope to see some of you tomorrow. Thank you so much. And
Thank you, Kabirji.
Thank you. Kabir.
oh, I didn't
Thank
see
you,
you.
Kabirji.
Thank you. Did you just turn up, Vishat, or were you there before?
I was here, Kabirji.
How come I didn't see your name? Or maybe some
Must have
mental
missed it.
block. Wow. Yeah, good. Thank you. Take care. Bye.